You are now listening to the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast.
Wait, the answer was add 10 gallons?
Add 10 gallons.
My first thought was we got to put Actigel in it.
Yeah, great.
Truck's on the way. On the way.
Yeah, okay. I've got two observations, neither of which are really educated or well thought out. Which are like most of my observations are.
There aren't a lot of problems on a job site that can't be solved with a sack full of biscuits.
Today's episode of the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast is brought to you by Actigel 208. Actigel 208 is a high-performance additive for the concrete industry that is greatly beneficial to the producer. It enables them to increase the percentage of manufactured sand by up to 100% and completely replace all the natural sand in the mix. In areas where natural sand is scarce, inconsistent, and expensive, this provides a huge benefit to any ready-mix company out there. Benefits of manufactured sand and concrete include consistent air content, improved compaction, and increased density. Now, in the past, the downside of using manufactured sands was that they were hard to pump, hard to place, and hard to finish. Well, Actigel 208 solves all those issues. By improving suspension, stability, and the quality of the cement paste in the mix, Actigel overcomes the old issues with manufactured sand and leaves them behind. Let Actigel 208 improve the quality of your mix while saving money on every yard you produce. For more information, visit us at actigel.com. That's ACTI-GEL.com.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast. My name is Josh, and I'm joined once again, as always, by Paul and Joey. Paul, how's it going?
Going good, brother.
Good, man. Joe, you doing all right?
Yeah, man, I'm good.
Oh, that's good. I mean, Paul's probably doing pretty well as we record this after the college football Saturday of November 22nd, where Arkansas and Tennessee continues to suck the soul out of their fans' bodies week by week. But, Paul's team played a basketball school, so they put up a basketball score. And Kentucky was playing baseball or something. I'm not sure what they were doing.
Yeah, they didn't show up. But it's not their fault. They came into the game and they were like, hey, we don't know how to pass the ball, so we're only going to run the ball. And after the first quarter, Alabama's defense made the adjustments and we won by 60.
Yeah. It was some real high school looking stuff there.
Well, hey, actually, if nobody here watched that game, if you're a Kentucky fan, you should be so angry at your offensive coordinator. He should be fired after that game. And because here's the reason. They had success in the first quarter. At the end of the first quarter, they were beating Alabama in every statistical category, and the score was like 7-3 or something. Like, it was a really close game.
Yeah.
And it should have been closer, but they screwed up on a field goal and went negative 36 yards on a field goal attempt, and we got the ball because it was fourth down. So the problem is the success they had in the first quarter, they abandoned that completely for no reason. We could not stop whatever this triple option thing they were doing. We couldn't stop it. And at halftime, Saban was confused. They were asking him, they're like, what do you think about your performance? And he goes, well, we couldn't stop them in the first quarter, but for some reason they stopped doing that, and we had a lot of success in the second quarter.
He said
so,
that?
Yes. The whole broadcast was like, I wonder why they're not doing this. And Saban's like, I wonder why they're not doing this. And they never went back to it, and we won by 60.
All right. Well,
I'll take it.
I got nothing to say.
That's well, the people that took Bama and laid the points in the gambling world, they were happy because we won by 60 when the line was 30. So
yeah, you probably covered the point total by yourself too.
Yeah. And the games are taken for next Saturday. Feel good about those, but we'll see.
Yeah, right on. Joey, I don't really want to talk a whole lot about the Hogs because I just get tired of complaining about officials. And it's just not fun to listen to either. So I don't know if you got anything to say either, Joe. I do have a question for you, though. If you see an interception, do you automatically assume now that it's going to the house?
Whenever Tennessee takes a snap, I assume it's going to be an interception or a turnover.
Yeah.
You have a Jarrett Guerin turnover when he throws a ball into the end zone. You just assume the worst as soon as the ball leaves his hands.
I feel like if a jersey number could be pick 6 instead of like 26, they would change his jersey number to pick 6.
I wish that I could be mad at officials like Arkansas can. But unfortunately, I cannot. I can be mad at a subpar 5th or 8th year quarterback. I don't know.
You told us a stat about Tennessee, and I just want to make sure that all our Tennessee people that are listening to this catch this stat, that your current coach, Pruitt, has a worse record this many years into his tenure at Tennessee, a worse record than Derek Dooley and Butch Jones. And you should marinate in that sadness a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, Joey, I got some good news and I got some bad news. The bad news, obviously, is Tennessee football is going to be Tennessee football for another year. The good news is it can always be worse. You could live in the state of Pennsylvania and be a Penn State fan. Is Penn State still winless? Winless, right. So now you don't have the only shining thing that people in the middle of Pennsylvania used to be able to be happy about. And on top of that, they have the highest gas tax in the country. And I'm going to segue this into a concrete-related article.
All right, let's see it. I'm excited about this. I don't know where you're going with this. I just know.
So according to my information here, Tennessee is paying 27.5 cents a gallon extra for tax on top of what the gas costs. And it is, for diesel, 28 cents, okay? Now, Pennsylvania, and all of the great things they have going for them this year, they have the highest gas tax. They're paying 0.586 cents a gallon. And then for diesel, they're paying 0.74 cents a gallon tax extra for diesel. And why you tax diesel more, it makes no sense other than they're trying to get their money from the trucking industry. Yeah, so that's another topic for another day. And I'm not done with the bad news for Pennsylvania yet, and also trying to make Joey feel good. I'm reading these articles, and I'll read you the headline. PennDOT weighing options of tolling bridges, tunnels, and parkways. So, basically, despite having the country's highest gas tax, they're almost double what the median is. They're still at a deficit. During the pandemic, obviously people aren't driving as much, and the petrol tax money has dropped by about $400 million year over year, and that's bad. So you might think to yourself, well, that's why they're trying to toll bridges and tunnels and parkways to make up that. Well, a PennDOT spokesman in a news story, it was actually like a video story for a Pittsburgh local news channel yesterday, said that, well, yeah, that $400 million deficit that we're not getting this year because people aren't driving, that's bad enough, but these options in this study has been investigated for over a year now, and it really doesn't have anything to do with coronavirus. Essentially, in Pennsylvania, the roads and the bridges and the tunnels are so bad that and they have so many of them, the amount of money that it would take to revamp all of this infrastructure is just completely astronomical. So while they say that the tolls are unlikely to be implemented on every bridge and tunnel and all that stuff, what they're looking at doing is tolling new construction. So if a tunnel needs to be revamped, rebuilt, same with a bridge or anything else, at that point they're going to implement a toll on that section of roadway. Toll prices are going to be between $1 and $2 usually. It'll tie in with the Easy Pass stuff.
Wait a minute, they already decided this is
hypothetical.
Oh, good.
The locations of these will probably be announced by early 2021, where these the project locations are going to be, what kind of toll system or infrastructure they might implement. But they said whatever PennDOT decides to do to make more money, they need to improve the implementation of user fees they put in. So this story and the comments made by the PennDOT spokesperson, they kind of contradict themselves, because they say, well, this is just an idea that we're kicking around. And then they say, well, hypothetically, we're going to implement these tolls in this very specific way. So I would only assume that it's coming down the pipe.
Yeah, they're fishing for backlash. They're fishing for backlash. They want to see, hey, let's float this idea,
right? See
how it goes over. And that's the problem with government services, is that they're not a business. Governments aren't a business.
100%. They don't have to make money.
And they always need more money.
Yep.
It's never enough money, and that's because the people that don't like capitalism, one of the things they'll point at is the prices always go up. And there's a reason for that, and it's not a bad thing. But it is a bad thing if you think the government should be in charge of everything, because the prices are always going up. And the only way to get more revenue as a government is to, one, cut spending, or there's two ways. One is to cut spending in other areas to increase revenues for the separate areas. But the only way to increase the size of the pie is to get more taxes. So you can either have programs that incite businesses to move into your state and hire thousands and thousands of people that are high income generators that come into the state, and now you've got a bigger tax base, or you can raise taxes on people, whether it's through income taxes or tolls and fees and all this stuff. And you're right, the bridges, there's so many bridges. If you've never been to Pittsburgh, it's almost impossible to fathom how many bridges are in Pittsburgh. They called it Three Rivers Stadium, where the Pirates played for a reason. There's three giant rivers that just trisect the city of Pittsburgh. There's bridges everywhere. It's unbelievable. They're all falling down. So, yeah. They do need the money. I'm not doubting that. But what kind of service, having a new bridge sounds like a service. So the question to me is like, what service are they providing with these tolls? Because are they only going to toll you until they recoup the money they spent on that project?
Of course not.
Of course not. Is there any way for us to oversee where that toll money goes and what it's used for? No. But, there are there is an instance in Pennsylvania where they actually do charge you a toll on a road, and I think it's perfectly fine. When they built I-76, it goes straight from Philly to Pittsburgh. It's a straight shot. They built these phenomenal rest stops along the way. They're great. The roads are fantastic. The construction was fantastic. And they're like, hey, you want to use the turnpike to go literally directly across the state between the two biggest cities. And, oh, by the way, we'll run right by Harrisburg on the way for you, too. You want to do that? Yeah, it's going to cost money. And you're like, okay. Yeah. You just cut the drive time across the state in half. It was a great, now that to me, I'm like, all right, you want us to pay for that? I can understand that. But this, hey, we need to fix the bridges, so pay us more money. That to me is nonsense.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and that's why I prefaced this whole article, this whole topic, with the fact that they already have the highest gas tax in the country by far. I mean, if you're beating California tax category, you got to try to do that.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So, that's it. I'm moving.
Right.
Yeah, I feel bad for the people that live in these cities. Because, I can sit here and complain about toll fees and this and that, but I'm not going to be going over these bridges.
Yeah.
I don't live in Philadelphia. I don't live in Pittsburgh. Yeah. So I'm not really that concerned about these tolls, except the philosophy behind the tolls. And yeah, sorry, Joey, you had to listen to us rant about these high-tax areas that we live in, and you're down there in Tennessee. They don't even have a state income tax.
Taxation is theft. Next article.
Yeah, I mean, this entire topic was to make Joey feel better about himself. I've complained about taxation long enough. What else? What else you guys got for us?
Well, we'll go from your negative news about money, and we'll go to Joey's positive news about money. Joey's got the updated forecast from Dodge Analytics. What do you got for us?
So, yeah, I found a bright spot in 2020, and that's the Dodge Data and Analytics 2021 construction outlook. They predict that the total U.S. construction starts will increase by 4% next year, which will equal out to about $771 billion. So that is some good news. 2020, construction starts slipped. They slipped about 14%, which was about $738 billion. But the dollar value of non-residential buildings will be up 3%. Non-building construction will improve by 7%. So this is all, predictions and theories, of course, but this is kind of based on further stimulus that may be coming in early 2021, vaccine that we could get probably by the end of the year. So this is kind of resting on all of that. Institutional construction will increase by 1% as growing state and local budget deficits impact public building construction. Public works construction will see a little bit of improvement. And here's something interesting. Electric utilities and gas plants will gain 35%, led by expected groundbreakings for several large LNG export facilities and an increasing number of wind farms. So that's pretty interesting. That's one of the bigger data points here in this little report. However, they still say that retail and hotel activity, that's still going to be pretty low, understandably, even though we have a vaccine coming and there's stimulus coming.
people still aren't going to be out and about as much as they used to, because the fear is still there by a lot of people, and you can see that, just going anywhere. There's still people with their masks on. There's still a lot of mask mandates out there, so the fear is still there. But overall, construction is looking to improve upon this year for next year. So that was good.
Yeah, no, that is good. And I mean, obviously, the article goes on a little bit of speculation and theory, but all by, a pretty reputable source. But it kind of went into contrast of what a lot of people that we talked to in the industry, what they were predicting. They're like, well, we don't really see a whole lot of projects coming down the pipeline and stuff like that. But to that point, we were talking to people in a very specific market, right? And this that Joey pulled up in the stats that he just presented, it kind of is an all-encompassing look at the market. So I guess when you look at everything that way and kind of predict what might be coming down the pipe, it looks a little bit more positive than some people might be guessing at the moment.
Yeah, that's kind of why I brought it up, because it did go against everything we had heard. So I was interested in seeing why it said that, and I think most of it was because of those utility plants. Like I said, that's the biggest data point in that report, and it didn't really expound much on civil construction and big skyscraper projects that we've seen in Chicago and some of these other major cities. So overall, it says construction is going up. However, everybody we've talked to in the civil market is anticipating kind of a low year in 2021.
Yeah, like you said, all these inner city civil jobs aren't looking so hot, but a 35% increase in the utility market. That's a humongous jump year over year. I mean, how many windmills can you build?
Mm-hmm. They've been building a lot of them, and quite frankly, you need to build a lot of them because they're not that efficient. But I digress. What's LNG? Liquid natural gas?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The thing with the LNG is what you have to build. You have to build to get it out of the ground. Mm-hmm. So your oil well cement type of stuff, fracking and all that. So you got to get out of the ground. Then you've got to build to transport it.
Pumping stations, yeah.
So you either have pumping stations, or you've got in a lot of cases these are being shipped around. So maybe not over interstates, but they actually build shipping ports just to handle LNG volumes, and so they'll put them into tankers and they'll move it around, barge it around that way. Then the infrastructure to process it and handle it. So there's so much that goes on in the LNG side for construction that's beneficial for the concrete industry.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then the LNG stuff's beneficial, but then also the basis for those windmills is just a massive amount of concrete.
Huge amount of concrete.
As much as I hate on windmills and wind energy, keep pouring those bases.
Well, we've talked about this before. I didn't realize how big the windmills were until you see one of the blades driving down the road. Yeah. And the only thing, you're just like, oh, okay. They literally decided, how big can we get a flatbed? They're like, well, they're usually like 53 feet. Like, great. That's how big we'll make the blade.
Right.
Yeah, it's huge. And you need it all at one time. You can't just be like, oh, I'll take 100 yards a day, 1,000 tomorrow. They're like, no, let's pour 2,000 a day every day for a week, and let's get out of here. Yeah. I mean, they're huge.
I mean, that's a huge volume of concrete, but normally they're in remote areas as well.
Oh, yeah.
Up on a ridge somewhere, out in the middle of a plain or something like that.
Yeah, a volumetric truck's just not going to give you what you need.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, that's good news, and that's why I kind of alluded to earlier, having an all-encompassing look at the market it makes a little bit more sense that there's a light at the end of the tunnel now, instead of just looking at civil projects or even residential projects, because I'm wary about that, man.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
why?
It's just our economy is in part being propped up by stimulus checks, and they keep building houses.
Yeah, they're going crazy.
The job market isn't skyrocketing. Our GDP isn't skyrocketing, but housing starts are skyrocketing. Now, I'm not saying that the banks are approving subprime loans and all that stuff like they were doing a decade ago, to where people are moving into houses they can't afford. There might be some of that. Yeah. But, I mean, is there an element of overbuilding here? Because a lot of these housing projects were approved and decided upon before COVID-19 hit.
Well, some of them, but I think what happened is this spring, April, they said, hey, we're going to shut things down, and people were just looking around like, okay, well, I've got money that I wanted to spend. So you're talking about the better off people that weren't losing their jobs. And they're, well, I've got money to spend. Where do I want to spend it? And so we saw a record number of pools being built.
Yeah.
People were building stuff at their home. Peloton can't build enough bikes.
Yeah.
So then you got, what's the next step? Well, let's buy a new house and go live somewhere else or move somewhere else. And there's just a way to put money somewhere.
There is an element of that for sure. People looking for houses with a home office.
And the prices went through the roof.
Yeah.
I was looking,
Well,
and
the low interest rates help the housing market.
that helps too.
Yeah.
Because I was actually looking, and I'm like, okay, well, this neighborhood that I was looking at, the house was like $330,000, and then it's taken off market a couple months later. It's back on the market for $380,000. I'm like, that's the same house. It's probably in worse shape because nobody's been in it for 6 months, and it just went up $50,000. I was like, y'all are crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Josh, when you flew down for our work, a couple months ago or whenever it was, Nashville's full of cranes. They can't build enough housing. They can't build enough apartments for the people moving here. For a while, there was over 100 people a day moving to Nashville or to the metro area. Finally dipped below 90 or finally dipped below 100. So I think it's still maybe in the 90s or in the 80s. Every day those people are coming to Nashville. They have to have a place to go. And so they can't build condos fast enough. They're just redoing old buildings, putting little apartments in there. All the farms, in Davidson County, the old farms, you're not seeing those as much anymore. They're subdividing those out. People are making a mint on the old family farm. My farm in Hickman County, if I had it in Davidson County, there's no telling what I could make off of it. I'd be a millionaire. I could retire. It's unreal what stuff is going for around here.
If I know anything about Joey Bell, you'd have to. I mean, what would that offer have to be to get Joey to sell the family farm? I don't know if there is an offer.
Where it's at now, no, absolutely not. I don't ever plan on selling it.
It's too hilly out there. I couldn't imagine they'd buy that for development, would they?
No, not out there. I mean, if you had it closer to Nashville, yeah, absolutely. There'd be somebody eat it up. It wouldn't matter because you can put row houses anywhere. You can just stack them in there. They don't care.
Yeah, but knowing you need a place to go because, you're never sure what day your wife's going to walk out on you, and you just need a place to go. And
That's right. That's right.
I don't know how to segue from that. What do you got?
I kind of want to stay on the topic.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to sit here quietly.
Don't ever think I won't leave.
Yeah, there's always pros and cons to outkicking your coverage.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, okay. We can transition to the next thing.
Oh, okay. All right. I see.
I don't have the article link for you, but I did see a technology that I really want to talk about. I want to know that if you think, because it's hypothetical technology, it doesn't exist yet, but I saw the concept and I thought it was really neat, and I think it could have application in concrete in some ways. But the technology was for engineers, and it's to have connected to your hard hat would be a face shield, and the face shield would be capable of augmented reality. And so as you point your eyesight in a certain direction, you could have the option to get supplemental information about what you're looking at, or to be able to read things, gauges or lines or whatever, and have that information be processed on the screen in front of you. And then instead of you having to take a clipboard and record all the measurements yourself, it gets sent to a server and things are recorded automatically. So you're taking out human error. You're getting more information. And also, like, maybe you don't know every single spec about everything. So especially with young guys, they're coming in, they could have these face shields. They can say, hey, by the way, this pressure on this line is out of spec. Here's the spec. We need to get it back in spec. Tap for more information on how to troubleshoot, and they could give you more steps right there on your screen for how to troubleshoot the situation and give you real-time feedback on these things.
That's awesome. That's, kind of like an Iron Man helmet, but a little bit more practical.
Yeah. Oh, you could scan, let's say you're working on like a pipeline maintenance, and you could visually look at the pipeline, and this thing could scan in much greater detail maybe than your eyes could, and find defects and rate them severe, moderate, mild, or no defect at all for these different issues, and help you troubleshoot on how to sort. And it would send all this information wirelessly to a server, and so it all gets cataloged, and then whoever is sitting in the office can see those reports, and it's always recorded in the right way at the right time. I don't know, man. I thought it was pretty cool, and I think if you had something like that in concrete, could be very interesting to me.
The possibilities are endless, and really it's not a brand new idea per se. I think Google and a couple other companies have been messing around with the heads-up display optics for glasses and stuff like that. It's just whether or not the technology can be accessible and affordable.
Well, they got those hatches that they're building into the drums of the concrete trucks that are measuring the slump and air and everything. All that stuff's getting measured right there. How much water is in it, if you need to add water, all that stuff. Those are already being built into the drum. So at what point does that information become wearable? Yeah. And then you're not as limited onto what information you can absorb. So these monitors on the truck are only as good as the probes they're using. Yeah. Monitors on the truck you don't have a deeper file of information to dig from. It's just like, here's what it says. But in an augmented reality situation with a full face shield, so your screen's much bigger. You're potentially being on a hard hat type helmet. You could have much better optics, so you're not limited to the frame of a set of glasses and trying to make it as tiny as possible. You could have much better optics on that thing, so you're going to be able to see better. Your field of vision's better. How much information you can fit on a screen is better. And then with it being in an augmented reality situation, you could get more feedback from it and then go deeper. So would you like to learn more about this, or would you like to do this, or what task would you like to do next? And you could just go on and on and on and on. And I just think the possibilities are incredible there. And I'd love to see something like that come into the construction world.
Yeah, if you scan like a slab of concrete, you can see imperfections like in the surface, or you could see maybe cracks forming that maybe you couldn't see before, or it's somehow scanned something. There's a lot of potential there.
Joint spacing. It could see and be like, oh, FYI, they didn't space these joints correctly. You're going to have problems. And you could go back and say, hey, this is what my AI software is telling me. Am I right or wrong? And then you look at the plans like, oh, wow, those are supposed to be 10-foot spacings and they're on 12 feet. You're right. We need to go back in here and double joint. So I don't know. I just think there's a lot of things you could do. And, we'll see. You mentioned it's affordability, right? Yeah. Affordability. How many of these can you hand out? And I don't know. I don't know the answer to those questions, but I got excited when I saw the technology.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what you're talking about to a certain degree is, well, let me back up. I think technology has improved every aspect of the construction industry and has been doing so. And actually, it, relatively speaking, has been doing so at a very fast pace. I mean, you look at the technology that's available now that wasn't a decade ago in surveying, in site work and prep work, in project planning, and so many other aspects. You're essentially talking about combining all of that to a certain degree. And then that's where the affordability and the accessibility comes in. But I mean, to a certain degree, a lot of the technology that you would need to implement is available. I think the challenge lies in packing all of that into something that's ergonomic and efficient, and then making it to where people can afford it. Yeah. But time always helps that. If you're talking about lithium batteries, or if you're talking about CAD design software, or if you're talking about basic robotics and automation, just over time it gets cheaper. That's the way it's been for a long time now. So
yeah, well, and so as I started to think about these smart helmets and smart screens, you could have apps for that. Yeah. Same way we have apps on our phone, you could have apps for these. So if you wanted,
you can pick and choose what you have.
Yeah, exactly. And if you need to send something to PennDot, boom. Or hey, I needed to see what this batch ticket was, so you can call up whatever the load was, and it's like, oh, it's supposed to spec says 4 plus or minus 1 inch slump, but this dude pulled an 8. And you're like, as much as I would love to pump that, we gotta fix that one.
Yeah.
Technology in concrete is so slow to be, implemented and accepted, where it seems like technology on the construction side, on that side, is way quicker, to be accepted and implemented, just with the efficiency, either with logistics or with safety or just all kinds of other stuff. And then in concrete, we have to scratch and claw for some of those simple technological advances.
All right, well, we've rambled on enough here. We're going to bring in our guest because she can speak probably a little bit better than we can. She has some great stories. And,
yeah, she's awesome.
A lot of good points. We're gonna bring in our guest, Jessie Boone. Jessie is from Tennessee, and she works with the Portland Cement Association down there. So she has a lot of paving-related information to share with us that's news to us, and it's going to get Joey real excited since that's where his roots lie. So they can go back and forth about trials and tribulations of paving stuff. But she's also an MTSU grad, so you guys are going to talk to her about that and reminisce on some of your favorite teachers or maybe some of your not so favorite moments and teachers and things associated there. And then we're going to talk about her career path after MTSU and what led her to where she's at now. She's also operating a small personal business with her and her husband. And then she also does some stuff with the CIM Patrons group. She's the VP of the CIM Patrons. So we're going to talk about all that, and I'm really excited to get into it. So without further delay, this is our guest for episode 9, Jessie Boone. All right, welcome into the program, Jessie Boone. Jessie, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you being here for sure. This was kind of orchestrated after Dr. Brown's interview.
Mm-hmm.
You certainly have close ties to the other two into this group because you yourself are an MTSU grad, whereas I'm not. So you are more or less on the podcast today to give me an education and viewers, and I'm looking forward to that. Tell us a little bit about when you graduated, what brought you to the program, ultimately what led you here with the Add 10 Gallons Concrete podcast as an honorary guest.
Okay, yeah. So I graduated in 2008, and I was pretty much a non-traditional student. I actually started college thinking I was going to be a dentist. And when microbiology kicked my ass, I had to take a step back and rethink, my life choices. And at the time, I was minoring in psychology, and I thought, I'm not going to get a job doing this. So I kind of quit college because I was spending my own money. I wasn't taking out loans, so I was kind of going, belly up in my savings. And I went back to working at the dentist as a dental assistant, and a fellow Coffee County High School graduate that was younger than me came in to get her teeth cleaned, and she asked, basically she said, "What in the hell are you doing back in Manchester?" And I said, "Well, I'm, trying to make money, figuring it out. I don't really know." She said, "Well, you need to look into concrete industry management." And I had never heard of it before. And I said, "Well, tell me more." And I said, "Oh, by the way, you were doing nursing." And she said, "Yeah, I failed out by 1 point, didn't make it into the program. And my boyfriend, who is also a Coffee County High School grad, was already in the CIM program. So she just jumped ship and went CIM because he was and knew he was going to move. And so, that's what she decided to do. And it interests me mostly because I was a big time FFA girl in high school. I did 4-H, I grew up on the farm, all the things, driving tractors and baling hay and just being outside. And, I had to take a step back and think, I don't want to be in a room all day, every day in the same building. I like being outside. I like working with my hands. I learn better that way. So I went and made an appointment. I don't even remember if I made an appointment or I just showed up at the CIM office one day. And it was back when it was just Sally and Becky. And I don't know when you two graduated, but do you remember Becky?
Yeah, I remember Becky.
It was those two ladies that were in there. That was it. Dr. Brown, I never had met her, but I had my transcript from Motlow and then all of the classes that I had taken at MTSU with me. And Sally was going through them, and I remember these two studs walked in, and they were talking about taking stuff out to the golf course for a golf tournament. And I'm like, what the heck? Okay. We never did golf when I was majoring in biology at MTSU or psychology. So what's going on? So I was eavesdropping, obviously. And yeah, they were prepping for some big golf tournament that the concrete program does every year. And they were good looking and I was single. I was like, sign me up. Where's the pen? I'll start next week. And that's how that started. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's funny how priorities change throughout life and what certain attributes lead you from one point to another when you're 18 to 20 years old.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly appreciate the honesty there. But so you went to Middle Tennessee State with the idea in your head, I'm going to join this CIM program and I'm going to, I assume, make a good living by working with my hands, working outside with a pair of boots on. Is that what kind of drew you to that after leaving your hometown?
I had no clue. I had no clue what I was doing. I mean, honestly, I remember being at a bar back home in Manchester and running into Chris Lilius. And I don't know if you guys know him, but he graduated from CIM probably, I guess, 2 years before I did. And he's a hometown boy too. And I told him, I said, hey, I signed up for CIM. I'm doing concrete. And he said, do you know the difference between concrete and cement? And I went, nope, not a clue. So he schooled me right there in a bar over a beer, back home. And so I walked into Folks's class only knowing the difference between concrete and cement. That's all I knew.
Wow.
I didn't know what I was going to do.
Was that a rough time in Folks's class? Because he was pretty intense. I
love Joe Folks. He was my favorite teacher. He and I had a relationship, though. He liked to pick on me, and I just gave it right back to him every single time. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Paul and I had his class. There wasn't a book, no kind of textbook. He didn't hardly on the board.
Mm-mm.
He sat on that stool up at the front of the classroom, and he talked. He just sat like this, and he talked and talked and talked and all his classes were like 3 hours, if I remember.
Yeah, they were long.
Once a week for 3 hours long, and that was your Joe Folks class.
Yeah. I remember one time we were talking about grades, like steepness of hills and whatnot, and he said, does anybody in this class even know the grade going up and down Mont Eagle Mountain? And all these guys are like, 15, 10. And I went, y'all, it's 5 and 6. And he looked at me, and he looked at everybody else. He went, she's right. And I'm like, okay, yeah, because I'm a girl, I couldn't be right.
I got it on the side of the interstate.
Yeah, well, I was going to Chattanooga every weekend to see this guy I was dating, so I knew 5 and 6.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so folks, number one, he liked the girls in the class better than the guys in the class. Let's not pretend here.
Let's be honest. Yeah.
R.I.P. Mr. Folks. All right.
Yes.
But I'd never been more irritated with a professor in my life than Mr. Folks. When we had an exam and he was like, hey, the exam's going to be on the whatever chapter inside the Bible, the concrete Bible, the ACI book. And I forget what chapter it was, but I memorized the dang thing. There wasn't a line in that text. You could pick any paragraph on any page. I knew every single text because I was a nerd and I wanted a good grade. And when he gave the test and I missed 2 questions, and I was just like, that's impossible. Like, how did these end up on this test? And I told him, I raised my hand. I said, where did these come from? This was nowhere in the assigned, educational reading. This wasn't supposed to be here. He goes, I know. I was like, well, why is it here? He said, well, I needed to know what you don't know.
Wasn't he always saying, I know that you don't know what you don't know? Didn't he always say something like that?
That sounds about right. He had some kind of crazy saying like that.
I said, I don't know anything. That's why I'm here.
Now, you weren't the guy that kicked the garbage can across the room now, were you?
No, we graduated 2 years after you. So.
Okay.
Shenanigans.
Yeah, there's some story, and I wished I knew who it was, but he got so mad at him, he kicked the garbage can across the room.
I think I remember that story. I don't remember who it was.
Oh, it's an age-old story. I mean, everybody knows it.
Fulks kicked the garbage can across.
No, the student.
Oh, the student did.
Yeah, the student got mad at him. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's understandable. I'm surprised that didn't happen more than once throughout his tenure.
I just feel sorry for all the students now that don't get the opportunity to know and love Joe Fulks.
Yeah, he was a wealth of knowledge. I forget what company he worked with before coming to MTSU, but he basically came direct from the industry.
Yeah.
No teaching experience, no academia whatsoever.
That's awesome.
They pulled him plumb out of the ready mix plant and stuck him in front of a classroom. And
yeah.
Looking back now, I didn't really appreciate it back then because I was just trying to get out of there. But man, looking back now, I wish I'd have paid attention a lot more. And knowing what we know now, we could have applied some things back then. But it was he was something.
Yeah.
I liked your story about getting into the CIM program, not knowing anything about concrete. That was kind of similar to mine. I started MTSU. I was a year at MTSU as a recording industry major, believe it or not, and then I switched to concrete. So I thought yours was pretty interesting. How you started out as one thing and went back and did concrete.
Well, I think Nicole has the statistics, but I think the majority of our students are like transfers, or they flip-flop from one degree to another. They found us in passing. I remember walking past the lab before I was a concrete major, seeing all the guys out there playing in concrete, and I totally thought they were like the janitors, like doing something, working around the school maintenance guys. That's what I thought was going on there. I had no clue.
Yeah, transferring to the concrete program after being in college for X amount of time was only one of the reasons it took me 6 years to graduate.
Yeah.
You can't leave early.
No, who would want to? I tell these kids, take your time. God, college is fun. When you get out, there's bills. Oh, and they don't stop.
Yeah, nobody knows what they want to do till they get out anyway, as far as I'm concerned. I had no clue, what I wanted to do. And, Paul and I have talked about this on previous episodes where we graduated and we were just trying to get somewhere, for experience. There was no picking and choosing what you wanted. It's just what you could get.
Right.
Was that, you said you graduated in 2008. Was that before or during the economy crash?
Right smack dab in the middle of it. Like
really?
The economy started crashing in 2007, I guess, like late 2007, and I graduated at the end of 2008. And I can't remember how many graduated with me, maybe like 20. There was maybe 3 of us that had jobs, and I was one of them. And of course, all the guys said I had a job because I was a girl, which could have very well been true. But I was awarded this position with Lafarge during my internship that summer. So I interned with them in Atlanta at the quality assurance lab. And the day before I left, they offered me a job. So I went back to my last semester knowing that I had a job already.
Well, yeah, that's one thing I kind of wanted to get into. We talked about what brought you to CIM and your time there. Bring us up to speed on graduation day. You said you started with Lafarge. Up to where you're at now, what you're doing now. So just take us through that whole journey there.
Yeah, it's a wild ride. So I did Lafarge for 3 years. I was moved to Atlanta, and I basically ran the quality assurance lab. I optimized mixes, designed mixes, and I did not want to go to Atlanta. I wanted to go anywhere but Atlanta because I just kind of wanted to go as far away from home as possible. But, beggars can't be choosers in 2008, so I took what I got. And I'm very blessed that I did have that opportunity because I got to learn concrete from the inside out and understand mixed designs and gradations and specific gravities and all of those things that go into making concrete do what you need it to do. I mean, I was designing mixes that had a delayed set. I designed mixes that went inside coolers, inside a Mayfield dairy, high early strength, decorative. I got to do a lot of decorative stuff, and I had a really good time doing that. There was a an instance where I almost killed an employee, like with my fists. So they gave me a truck and all the testing equipment, and I was then quality control out in the field. My quality control boss was in the lab when I threw a fit, and the next day they were like, we got to get her out of here. She's going to kill somebody. It was somebody being lazy, and I'm not even going to mention the guy's name, but he was the lab manager at the time, and he was just so lazy. And anytime a superior would walk in, he would act like he was doing something, and it pissed me off. And so one day we were pouring pervious concrete. And obviously, if you've worked with pervious, you know you don't pour it. You place it. You rake it out of a chute and you place it. And we were doing that. And he was sitting on the back of a tailgate, just swinging his little feet, watching everybody else sweat. And it was like a 90-degree day in Atlanta. And I got done with what I was doing. I walked into the lab. I took my hard hat off and I slung it across the office. And I didn't know, but Rick Tilson, who soon to be my boss, was sitting there. And I looked at him, and he looked at he was very slow, and he turned around and he looked at me. He said, "You all right?" I went, "I can't wait. I'm going to go back to school, and I'm going to get my master's, and I'm going to sit on the back of a truck and do nothing while everybody else sweats." Next day, I had a truck and all my equipment, and I was running around testing concrete around Metro Atlanta.
So you're telling the story about how you got your job with Lafarge. That's exactly how I got a job as well. So 2010,
yeah,
the economy crashed. I got a job as an intern with Lafarge in the lab. Same exact thing, except I was in Kansas City.
Oh, I was about to say, what? Okay.
Yeah, so listen to your story. I'm like, what? She's telling my story over here. What are you doing? And you're talking about being in that lab. I can't even tell you how many hours Josh and I have spent in that Argos lab, and I'm so glad that you know Rick Tilson. He's one of our absolute favorites.
Oh, you know Rick, Tricky Ricky. Oh my God, I love Rick Tilson. I love him. He is so smart, and he's all his greatest saying. He said this so many times to me. You'll learn. If I made a mistake, Rick, I did this. He's like, you'll learn.
Well, he says it like that, but he gives you that sly smile.
Yeah.
Like he's really meant to be some kind of Hollywood actor, but he's stuck measuring concrete. Right?
Yeah. He's a professional anglerman too. Did you know that?
I did know that. I knew that that was the one thing he valued more than anything in this world was his time to be able to go fishing. And I remember talking to him one time about, because he was trying to coordinate a schedule, and with ready mix, you're just all over the place. And then he was talking about his kids, or in a school that he has to drive 45 minutes one way because he wanted them to be in a better school. And he was juggling. He was like, I want to make sure my kids have a great education, but I also want to do all this fishing.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because I was a new father, and listening to him talk about his priorities and how he wanted to do all these things, but he knew that the best thing he could do is give his children a good education, and that meant having a good job and providing. And so fishing was kind of taking third on that seat, but it was number one in his heart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's a good guy. I reach out to him ever so often if I need some help.
Well, we try not to reach out to him because he always thinks I'm trying to sell him Actigel.
Oh, well, yeah, that's unfortunate. You should just say hi. I'm sure he'll appreciate it.
I will. Actually, Ryan Betts, who was on here this last episode, it's about to come out. They told me he was
about that.
with some man saying stuff. Told me to reach out to Rick, and I just, man, you know how many times I've reached out to Rick? I feel so bad reaching out to Rick Tilson. He's just such a good guy, and any way we can ever help him, we'd love to help him.
So Ryan Betts took over the lab after I left, and I mean, they couldn't have picked a better guy to run that lab. Is he still doing that?
No, he actually went over to the dark side. He is on the cement side now.
No. We don't call that the dark side. Asphalt's the dark side. I was about to say, Lord have mercy, he went to asphalt.
No. Now that's really the evil empire. You're right. I apologize.
Yeah.
But they're on the Argos ready mix side. They always felt like the cement guys had it easy.
Oh yeah, no, Ready Mix. We were the redheaded stepchildren of the industry, and the cement. Yeah, well, I'm in cement now, so I'm not gonna say anything negative about those guys. They pay my bills.
Did you work with Kelly Cloud, who came out of?
No, Kelly was. She graduated after I did, and I think she got her job with Lafarge after I had either moved on to Savannah, because they transferred me from Atlanta to Savannah to do residential sales, and I think maybe that's when she was with Lafarge.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, she was the next shining star. She was probably top of the class, graduated when Joey and I graduated. She was
Okay.
one of those top one, two, three. Got the job similar to what you got, going into Lafarge there into that lab. And then she moved to Texas. I don't know that she's still in the industry anymore, but she
Yeah,
moved to Texas.
I haven't
Sad.
heard anything out of her in a while.
Yeah. But you said you're in cement now. So what is it that you're into now?
So there was something I did after Lafarge. I was down in Savannah and doing residential sales and also still doing quality control, because once you know how to do that, you never can't not do that. So selling concrete during the day and then QC and jobs at night was really no life to live. And my boyfriend at the time was looking to move out of Savannah, and he had, picked up a job with Amazon here in Tennessee. So I just posted my resume on LinkedIn, and within like days, I had a headhunter contact me about a job at a company called Magato. And so obviously I Googled Magato, never had heard of Magato, but the sales office was based in Franklin. So I reached out to Dr. Brown and I asked her if she had ever heard of Magato, and she said, yeah, we have a graduate, a CIM grad that works there, Garrett Pear. And so she gave me his number, and I called him, and he said, yeah, I'm actually looking to leave. I think one guy was retiring, and then Garrett was actually taking another job. So there was two positions. And so I went out for one of them. They flew me to Nashville, and I interviewed, and I got awarded that job. And that job was they called it sales engineering. It's basically an account manager, a salesman to cement plants across the U.S. So my territory was Texas all the way up to South Dakota, just about everything east of the Rockies and west of the Mississippi, except for St. John, which is the big Wholesome plant over in, where was that, Missouri? So basically what I did is I would fly to a plant. I would get inside their mill internals. It's a massive setup. You've got your preheater tower, you've got your crushers, your ball mills, your vertical roller mills, your clinker cooler, all these things. Well, everything is lined with metal. And so Magato was a foundry-based company where we melted metal to make metal castings to go inside cement plants, aggregate, mining, dredging. We did all of it. So I would get inside their mill internals, and I would do wear inspections, calculate the thickness of their metals and how much longer they lasted compared to their production rates. And then I would sell them parts. So it was a hot job. And I remember when I was getting interviewed, the guy that I took over for, Clyde Teets, this old guy, he said, well, if you get this job, you need to remember one thing: always pack dry underwear. Well, okay. Duly noted. Dry underwear. Got it. I'd never been to a cement plant, let alone been inside one. So I had no idea what he was talking about until the first time I got inside one. These things are mega hot. Like if it's a crash stop, they're like 125 degrees getting in. You get in, you get what you need, you get out, take a break, catch your breath, get back in. And so that's when I realized, yeah, dry underwear, got it. Pack it in my car, change on the way home kind of thing, because you're soaking wet when you get out of these things. Covered in cement, you got cement up in your nose. And anyway, I did that. I had 2 waste burning facilities down in Florida that I went to, and those stunk to high heavens. But it was a really freaking cool job. It was one of those jobs where all of my friends are like, what do you do? And you explain it to them, and they're like, What is cement? Well, it's not concrete. Yeah, I can tell you that. Um, but yeah, that was fun. But I got pregnant. The boyfriend that I had in Savannah, well, he and I got married, so he knocked me up, and so I was traveling across the world, pregnant, getting inside cement mills, pregnant.
My goodness.
At about 7 months, I told my doctor what I did, and if he thought it was still okay, and he was like, "Girl, I don't even know what you do. You just do what you think is best." Okay. So I stopped traveling at just at 8 months, and I've got pictures of me big bellied inside of a meal with my harness on, and all the PPE, and I've had so many guys say, "I don't think we'll ever see another pregnant girl in this meal." I said, "I don't think so either. I hope I'm the last, because I like to be queen of all things." But I didn't want to travel, like that. And after having kids, and so I reached out to Dr. Brown again, and I said, "I know this is a long shot, but is there anything in the Murfreesboro, Nashville area that they're looking to hire, because I might need something with a little bit more home life?" And she said, "Jessie, I have been sitting on this job for 4 months. They've been asking me to fill this position with a CIM grad, but she didn't have anybody that she wanted to give it to, because it was the Portland Cement Association, and they had never hired a CIM grad before. And so she wanted to give them the best." And that's where I came in. So I interviewed for that job, and I got it. And so now I promote pavement-based applications for the cement manufacturers in the state of Tennessee. And that's how I got to where I am now.
Awesome. That'll make Joey Bell happy. He hates asphalt just as much as you do.
Oh, I hate it. We chew it up. And full depth reclamation is one of the things that I promote. It's a way to recycle an asphalt road. You chew it up with this big reclaimer, and then you lay down cement, mix your mixed water in it, create a concrete base, and then you pave over the top of it.
Yeah, milling machine is one of the greatest inventions ever made, just because it chews up asphalt.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. One day I may have one, but for right now, $700,000 is just not sitting in the bank right now.
So what are some? Are you working on any unique projects around the state now regarding paving?
Yeah, so we just finished up TDOT's longest FDR project to date. It's about 9.5 miles in West Tennessee, and I watched the episode with Dr. Brown, and she mentioned that one. So MTSU and UTC together got this grant study from TDOT to study that. And because I'm the only person in the state that promotes FDR, she hired me as a consultant to come in and help. So I'll go with the team, and we'll go collect samples on the road and do falling weight deflectometer testing, and then take it back to the lab and run all the necessary tests. But that project just wrapped up, and then TDOT has looked at doing another road over in West Tennessee, Weakley County. And I've been working with them on that and getting a proposed mixed design for the bidding process in February. So those are fun. There's a lot of concrete paving going on at airports right now, which is relatively new. Like B&A, obviously they use concrete, but our little GA airports are predominantly asphalt. And if I can't flip them to do FDR, I would rather see them go concrete paving. And we've got two right now that are finishing up. Jamestown, Tennessee just had a big concrete runway and taxiway. And Savannah Airport down in Hardin County is doing a huge concrete runway rehab.
Al, you said it's relatively new. When I graduated CIM, my first job was concrete paving for airfields. And that was back in 2011 with Atlantic Contracting. And those guys have been doing paving for years. I don't know how long they had done airfield work, but I was just curious because it seemed pretty common to me even 9 years ago. Is it just something new to B&A and the area down here, and it's more prominent in other places like the Mid-Atlantic where I was? Or
Yeah. So Tennessee is a massive asphalt state, and it's roads, it's city streets, it's airports, and it's mostly because, concrete, I think, and this is just my opinion, concrete got a bad name when 440 started going downhill. And everyone blamed the concrete. It was all the concrete's fault. But in all actuality, that road was not designed for that amount of traffic and that weight of traffic. So that road was federally funded. And so TDOT designed the road for commuter traffic. And then when it was open, the feds were like, oh no, we paid for this. You got to let semi trucks and all traffic on it. So the road was destined to fail from the get-go because it was not designed for that type of traffic. I mean, even the barrier walls and the sound walls were not designed for that. So when they did 440 rehab, the past 2 years, everything had to be replaced. And so they actually used, side note, they used cement treated base, another application that I promote, on 440. They recycled some of the concrete and used that as the CTB. But to my point, I think that road failing let the asphalt mafia come in, swoop in, and spread their love all over Tennessee. And it ran a lot of the concrete guys out because there wasn't enough work for them. So why would they stay? And so there hasn't been enough, alternate designs from TDOT to keep any concrete guys around. And then it takes people like me fighting for concrete to wake, the guys up at either TDOT or TDOT Aeronautics or these design engineers that are, paid to create designs for pavement to say, hey, listen, do 2 bids, do an asphalt design, do a concrete design. Even if asphalt, comes in cheaper than concrete, I can guarantee you it's going to be cheaper than what it would be if you just did straight asphalt and no concrete alternate, because they'll get scared and they'll say, okay, we got to lower our price. You'll get a truer fair market value price on asphalt if you compare it to something else. And then what they're seeing is a lot of people are like, no, I want concrete. So Jamestown, in particular, that airport, though, their board wanted concrete, and they put their foot down and they said, you could do an asphalt design and we'll consider it, but we want concrete if it comes within our budget. And it did, and that's what they got.
Are there any upcoming projects, or are there any talks to have roller compacted concrete for paving, or are we still alone on having that on the roads?
Now, I don't think we'll ever see RCC on roads, mostly because RCC is not a smooth surface. It's if you look at it, it looks like gray asphalt. So you can't tell that it's not that smooth, but you're going to see it predominantly on, large parking areas, places where you've got a lot of, I call it like tracked traffic, like, the tracks on bulldozers and excavators, that kind of stuff, gouging of forklifts, because it holds up to those types of impacts. There is an admixture that Andale Construction has created that you can add to the RCC, and then you put a trowel on it, a trowel machine, power trowel, and you smooth out the surface and you get a better ride. But, the beauty behind RCC is that it's cheap. Not cheap made, but you compare it to, traditional concrete and asphalt, your RCC's more often than not going to come in cheaper than the other two. So if you start adding admixtures to it and then laborers to it and all these line items, that drives up the price. So it just really depends on what you want. I mean, RCC is a truly fantastic pavement application, and I wish more people would consider it. So that's another reason why I have this job, is trying to convince these civil engineers who have never even seen RCC before to design it and then put it in a proposal.
Are there any projects where it's used asphalt overlay just so they get that asphalt look, that asphalt feel, but they have the RCC underlay?
Yeah, so there's actually Columbus, Ohio, I've been told, has more RCC subbase than anywhere else in the U.S. And the whole city, anytime there's a road that's rebuilt or new, they'll do RCC and then they'll overlay it with asphalt. And what that does is it allows that asphalt to last so much longer.
How thick is that asphalt top coat?
I would say 2 inches. It might be like a 1.5 inch or 1.5 inch binder and 1.5 inch surface, maybe 3 inches. I don't know. It just depends on what, Columbus's specifications are for asphalt. But I've seen RCC dams, dam walls. I mean, it's incredible what that stuff can do and where it came from. I mean, they used to just place RCC with a dump truck and a motor grader and just move it around that way. And now they have these high density pavers that put it out. And I mean, it's got almost 2,200 PSI coming right out the back of the paver. You walk on it, you roll all over. You can put a truck on it the very next day. It's just
that's
incredible.
What we used to use for, you were talking about CTV. That's almost essentially RCC is what that is. You're taking that recycled concrete. It's recycled concrete aggregate, and you're mixing it with cement and water. And you're just placing it with a dump truck, cutting it down with a motor grader, just like you said, and rolling it out. And that's what we used to use for base to pave on top. On top.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's great stuff.
We were talking about it being so much cheaper, and the lack of labor required for RCC. That's what really surprised me. That they don't use that more often in these places, because you just listed it off what it takes to place it. It's, a dump truck. It's basically a high-powered asphalt machine and rollers, and it doesn't require that much equipment and very minimal labor. And so that's got to reduce the cost. So it's very surprising they don't use that more often.
Well, and think about the reason why the concrete program was developed 25 years ago. There was a need for people who had a concrete-based knowledge. And that's because they were getting these civil engineers that had no concrete knowledge at all. And think about that. That's not changed. They're still getting the same knowledge base that they were getting, 25 years ago. So if you talk to most civil engineers, they really don't know a whole lot. They had maybe one class on concrete, and that's it. And so they've never heard of roller compacted concrete. So they would truly not know how to design it or even know where a candidate or what a candidate would look like. I mean, I have to be in front of so many projects that I hear that are looming in the future and try to plug where I can RCC, FDR, soil cement. Come on, let's consider all these things before that project gets designed, because once it's designed, you can just wash your hands. I mean, you're not going to get in at all. I've tried before. There was an Old Dominion trucking terminal that was being built in Knoxville, like the Knoxville, that 40-75 corridor right there. And I had the plans in hand, and I went to my RCC contractor and I said, can we flip this? And he said, I would love to. So we started talking to whoever we could. And I went so far as to find the president of Old Dominion, and I emailed him this long, heartfelt email. Like, listen, I'm not trying to sell RCC to Taco Bell. I'm trying to sell RCC to guys, to places that need it, where it will benefit you. In 5 years, when your asphalt is failing, you can guarantee that RCC is not going to do that. And he thanked me for it, and he sent it on to his real estate guy. And that guy basically said, remove me from your email chain or something like that.
It sounds like the emails we get sometimes.
Yeah.
Joey got the best response ever when he was trying to help some guy.
Oh, yeah. We're in sales and business development, so we hound people all the time. And I remember there was this one guy that I had emailed once or twice a week for months, on end. Left voicemails, the whole spiel, trying to get a hold of him to help him out. I think it was with some shotcrete. And he responded to one email one time, and it had one word, and it said unsubscribe. Yeah, that was pretty demoralizing.
Yeah.
I'd left voicemails with this guy. I was a real person. You don't just unsubscribe from a human being, I guess. But yeah, that hurt my feelings.
Yeah, I hear you. It was a gut punch to me too, and I showed it to Andrew Smith, who's co-owner in Robert Smith Paving, and I said, you know what? In 5 years, when his asphalt's rutting up, he'll remember this email, and I can't wait.
His own asphalt, right?
It was his own asphalt.
Well, it always made sense for government roads and government projects because, as we've discussed on this podcast before, is that when they're looking at new roads and paving, a lot of times they're using a budget that is only as long as the term of their office. So they say, okay, well, the asphalt's cheaper, so I'm going to go with the cheaper road because I've only got this amount of budget and I'm only going to be in office as a governor for 4 or 6 years, and the road's not going to be replaced in that 4 or 6 years. So I'm going to spend this now and we're going to go forward. I'm going to try and get reelected rather than paying more money and going over, quote unquote, over budget with a concrete road that'll last 3 times as long.
Yeah.
They're not playing the long game. They're playing the election cycle. And so that always made sense. It is surprising that a guy at Old Dominion wouldn't see that value. But like you said, he handed off to the real estate guy.
Right.
Who's, lobbyist for the government anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I have definitely learned a lot about, who funds roads, who makes the calls on, pavement designs and those types of things in regards to Tennessee. Now, all states work differently, but in Tennessee, TDOT maintains, the highways and the interstates, and then your counties maintain their roads, and then your cities maintain their roads. So when I got handed this position 5 years ago, 6 years ago coming up, they threw me to the wolves. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know Joe from Peter and Peter to Paul. And, they were saying, go, talk to these county guys about something I'd never even seen before. Go try to get them to use FDR. And I'm like, I've never even seen FDR yet. So finally, I remember the day that it clicked. Like maybe I had like a presentation that just went really well and I had all the answers. And since then, it's really been a dream job, and I'm truly blessed to have it. And I really appreciate the fact that I'm the only person in the state doing it. So, I'm the FDR queen, so to speak. I mean, I've called myself that. I'm sure other people call me things, maybe not queen, but.
Listen, Jessie. I got to tell you, we are birds of a feather here on this podcast with you right now. I'm telling you, you have described our lives over the last 8 years, getting thrown to the wolves, trying to become knowledgeable about things we don't know anything about, not necessarily concrete, but we've done so many applications. We weren't shotcrete experts when we started putting our products in shotcrete. We weren't double T experts or SCC experts or all these different projects we've been on, but we had to get in, learn, sink or swim, because we're trying to build a business. And you're essentially the same thing. You're trying to build a business, selling these opportunities from scratch.
Yeah.
Nobody handed you a Rolodex that said, here's the person to call, here's what to say, and have a good day.
Yeah. No, I remember riding around. So my boss, Roger, hooked me up with Barry Wilder, who owns Roadworks. And he's one of the only FDR contractors in the state. Oddly enough, he used to have this position. So he left the Portland Cement Association to open up Roadworks. So I, met up with him and rode around with him one day. I mean, it was like a week into my employment here. And he was giving me all these names of people to contact and, doing a lot of talking. And finally, at one point, he looked over at me and said, "Do you not have any questions?" No, I am taking it all in. I'm writing everything down. No, I don't have any questions. But now I don't shut up. So I think he probably sometimes wishes that we could go back to 2015 when I didn't say anything. Now I just talk, and he and I will fight. I won't talk to him for a week. He's like, "You're mad at me, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm mad at you, you old butthole. I don't even work from you, and you're yelling at me." So I've learned a lot.
Makes you a good podcast guest.
Oh, he would be. No, I'd be better than him. He kind of doesn't talk that much. He's a rough around the edges, so to speak.
Right. Well, back then when you first started, the saying goes, "You don't know what you don't know," right? So that's probably the reason behind the lack of questions there. But with all of your years in your position, and it seems that you're truly passionate about it, which is great to hear. And you're making some inroads. You're having some success in a state that was relatively green to concrete paving and roadways and such. But do you have an end game in your mind? Is there like an ultimate goal where you want to take your position and take this option?
So, yes, I think so sometimes. And then sometimes I'm like, nah. So I did recently open up my own concrete contracting company for my husband. Yeah. According to Dr. Brown, I'm the first alumni that has brought their significant other over to the gray side. Or, maybe I am. I don't know. If anybody's out there listening, you can correct me. But yeah, he was in logistics. He's also in the Army, and he wanted to get out of his civilian job. He's always wanted to do his own thing. And we were given an opportunity back in March to do some concrete paving at a place in Bell Buckle. The homeowner couldn't find anybody to do it. She was a friend of mine. She said, "Hey, would you want to do it?" And I said, "Yeah, let's try it out." And it was a shit show, but it came out okay. And Justin really enjoyed his time pouring concrete. So we started kind of like side hustling on the weekends. We would meet after he would get off work and do something real quick. It was, like one job a month, maybe 2 jobs a month. And then we got to where we were building up this backlog of projects. And so I allowed him to quit his civilian job, and now he works for me. But things are going well. I gave him a raise yesterday on Veterans Day. Yeah. And and so he's happy. He's working right now. But yeah, I see that going further, especially, not just right now we're just doing small residential, but I could see that, trickling into commercial eventually. I do really admire these guys like A.G. Peltz that have these massive operations and these massive, mainline paving systems and what they do. And then I look at the labor force, and like literally we have 1 employee, which is my brother. So it's like that's a long shot to do something like that just because the labor force is ridiculous right now. But, I do truly love full depth reclamation. I love the equipment and the outcome and all that it takes to just rebuild this road. And I can see myself doing that in the future, but you've got to have a lot of capital to get into that. I mean, a reclaimer is $700,000, and you got to have the spread truck, the water truck, the grader, the skid steer, the sheep's foot, the steel wheel. And it's just a multi-million-dollar operation that, you just can't get into by yourself.
One of my old bosses, one of the things he said after buying literally dozens of loaders and skid steers and Terex trucks, he said, if you're going to go in debt, go down a blazing.
Yeah. I mean, you have to. Golly. I mean, nobody's going to give those things to you, and they're not cheap. And when they break, they're really not cheap.
Well, I remember, Paul's going to find this humorous because I think he knows what I'm about to say, but one of the best pieces of advice we ever got from Mr. Fulks was the best way it was either the best way or the easiest way to save money. And Paul remembers what he said, but he said the easiest way to save money is to not pay your bills.
Okay. So you guys can't see me because my video's broke, but I was waiting for my chance to tell that story half an hour ago because is my favorite Joe Fox story, but y'all couldn't see that I was over here chomping at the bit to tell this story, and I just had to let it go because there's no use in talking over everybody. Yeah, that's my favorite one. He looked up there, and because you were just describing it perfectly, Jesse, just perfect. That smug look when he asks a question because he knows you don't know the answer, and every time you throw out the wrong answer, he's wincing in pain. This fake pain.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
he had asked us. He says, "Well, what do you do if you don't? The electric bill just came in, and the water bills come in, and payroll's rolling around, and you don't have money for everything." What do you do? And everybody's shouting out all the wrong answers. Raise your prices. He's like, nope, you just lost all your business. Now you're definitely done. Get more jobs. He goes, they ain't handing them out like that. What are you talking about? And, his cash flow's running around. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And finally he said, yeah, don't pay your bills.
Don't pay.
What? We're all looking around. He was like, okay, it's not a perfect answer, but you'll make payroll. Hopefully the next job comes in. You can sort it out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of people that, slip on that bill. Well, I've got a 30-day net pay. I'll push that to 60.
We see it.
Maybe that's why nobody pays their Actigel bill. They're just on quote-unquote hard times.
Folks' actual quote when it was talking about pushing things out net there, he goes, they ain't going to turn the lights off tomorrow. You got like 3 months.
Yeah. Tis true. Hey, this coming from somebody who is now buying concrete on the regular. I like to get that discount. So I like to pay by the 10th to all my IMI reps. I like to pay by the 10th so I get that discount. Mm-hmm. I hope I can always say that. But for right now, yeah, I pay early.
It's a good idea for IMI to try to push early payments too. Give a little discount because otherwise, what's your incentive, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no incentive in pouring concrete.
Jesse, we got one more question. There's one question we ask all of our guests. What's the most crazy or wild, interesting thing you've seen on a job site or anywhere?
Hold up. I'm going to have to think on. Y'all should have messaged me this question so that I could be thinking of it, because I know I'll tell you something. I'll be like, dang it, why didn't I remember that one? Oh, I've got one. Before I jump into that answer, I do want to give a plug to the CIM patrons. Now, you two guys, I don't think I've ever seen you guys at a meeting. I'm going to have to see you guys at a meeting here coming up. We need fresh blood. We need new faces. I am the vice president of the CIM patrons. I'll be president next year once Daniel steps down, if they'll have me. And we do a lot to encourage growth in the program, to help the students. We do fundraising. The golf tournament and the skeet shoot and all those things don't happen overnight. It's a work in progress, and we would love to see any CIM alumni that's out there watching this podcast to, join us. You don't have to come to every single meeting, but we would love to see you, because we need new ideas and so that we can grow. And we need to grow our female population too.
When and where are those meetings? I live in White Bluff. You know where White Bluff's at.
Yeah.
Paul lives up in Pennsylvania, so I could for sure come to some of those. So just tell me when and where.
We will. All you got to do is email Sally, and she'll get you on the list. And so, anytime we have a meeting come up, she always emails out all the ones that are interested in coming. And we, people can call in too. You don't have to actually physically show up. So if you're interested in it and you want to call in, by all means, that's something we can do. So the story, I've got one. It's back in my ready mix days, because those days were the hardest days. Mm-hmm. Ready mix is where you get that tough skin, you learn how to cuss, and you learn how to be cussed at the most inopportune moments. I mean, I remember times checking concrete at the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, and this contractor comes up and he's just cussing me. Where the hell is my truck? And I'm like, I have no idea. I was on another totally different mix, totally different project from him. But because I was with Lafarge, by all means, let's cuss her out. But the one project that I was on, I was in Athens at the Athens plant in Georgia, and we were pouring. I can't remember if we were pouring at the school or where we were, but it was in the middle of the night. And this was a finicky mix, so I was slumping trucks, checking air, checking all those things at the plant in the middle of the night. And the batch guy comes out and he says, "Hey, the salesman, so-and-so's on the phone. He says you need to be at the job site, backing in trucks to the pump." And I went, "I need to be where?" I said, "I am making sure the concrete is right. I'm going to do that first." And so he goes back in. I guess he tells so-and-so that I was not going to the job site right now. I was going to continue slumping trucks. And about 5 minutes later, he comes back out. He said, he's back on the phone. He said that he told the contractor that you would be there backing in trucks to the pump. And I said, "You tell him if he wants to have somebody come back in trucks to the pump, then I'll get out there. But he's got to get his ass out here and slump these trucks." I don't know what, and if he actually used the colorful language that I did not use for this, because I said other things. Sorry, Mama, but she knows I cuss. Anyway, he never talked to me much after that. He never apologized either, but anyway, I think I got my point across. And I did eventually go out and back in trucks to the pump, which is not my job, but I took my sweet ass time doing it too. I think 15 trucks had gone out by the time I casually showed up. And you got to have the war stories because, I mean, like I said, that's how you get tough. That's how you learn who you are. And, there were many nights that I'd go home and cry into a bottle of wine and wonder why I'm doing this. Why did I do this to myself? And then, I had, you work through all those lessons at the School of Hard Knocks and you come out on top.
Well, we had similar situations, maybe not crying to a bottle of wine, but
yours is probably bourbon or whiskey, right? Because you're men.
But you're returning to a hotel in Denver, Colorado, and you're like, none of that went the way I thought it was going to go. and I look like a total idiot. The worst one for me was Corpus Christi, Texas. And not only had these guys bought a ton of product and things had been so perfect in the lab and then in small scale, and then we got to large scale on the job and they'd already bought stuff and they were running full bore and not a single thing went right. And nobody knew what the answer was. I didn't know. I called our people on the other side of the world and was like, "Hey, Australia, I know it's early, but I got a problem and I can't figure it out." And so nobody could figure it out. And the answer ended up being adding a ton of cement so they could get through the job. And we had to refund them all their money and take the product back. And it was just the longest day. And I felt bad for them because they worked so hard that day trying to make it work. And it was hard work. And I don't know. So just so you know, you're not alone in that. Mm-hmm. Just as a woman on the job, we've experienced the exact same things in hotels, just looking like, what am I doing?
Yeah. I don't think you're seasoned if you haven't experienced those things.
All right, guys. Well, we'll wrap it up with that. Jessie, we really appreciate your time. Thanks for everything you do for the industry. Thanks for all the different ways you help the MTSU CIM program as well. Speaking of, as someone that didn't go to the program, it's certainly an awesome program. And I say this, I think it's my third episode now saying I really wish I went to the CIM program. But now I got these guys to lean on, and I basically took the crash course that you have to learn most of that stuff in a 3-day period. So I'd much rather would have went to the CIM program, but we appreciate what you're doing for them. We appreciate what you're doing in the industry, and thanks so much for being on the show today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
And that's going to do it for episode 9. Thanks so much for listening in. Thanks again to Jessie for being a part of the show. We certainly appreciate it, and we're already looking forward to episode 10. In the meantime, go out and check us out on our Facebook and Instagram pages. Our social media pages have the video element for promotional clips and sound bites that we promote throughout the week leading up to each and every episode. So go ahead and check that out. Also, give us a review. Tell your friends about us as we try to grow our viewership each and every week on the Add 10 Gallons Concrete podcast. So until next time, we'll see you then.